Welcome to the Love Show, where we grapple with the question, what is love? Today we want to know, is love justice? The train seems to think love is justice. Let us find out. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, I quote, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." A lot of information in one little quote, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Good quote. I think at this stage of the game that we can all see clearly now that power without love is reckless and abusive. But I feel that love is power. We proved in our Love is Powerful Magic episode that love is powerful magic. But is it raw power? Another love show, perhaps. I feel if love is not power and it is anemic and sentimental, then it is probably not love. Like, maybe, but not love. I want to talk for a minute about power without love. Dr. King said it's reckless and abusive, and I agree. I think powerful people who don't put love into their power I think it comes from self-loathing, from a self-loathing point of view. It's like how we proved that you can't love another person until you love yourself first. You can't love your country or your power, I guess, unless you first love yourself and you're confident in your self-love. Excuse me. Dr. King said that it is reckless and abusive, and I agree to not have love and power. Love and power. Elect love. If we could only. People often worry about joining church and state. Some say if you bring love into the picture that with state, that you're joining church and state. And we do in the United States have constitutional safeguards to keep church and state separate. Our forefathers put these provisions in the Constitution to prevent the persecution and killing of non-believers. They were labeled witches and heretics and burnt at the stake. before the Constitution was established. So these safeguards were put there to protect the vulnerable. To love? Perhaps. Right now, most provisions the forefathers put in the Constitution are being poo-pooed by the current administration. Bush Sr. gave federal funds to churches in the 90s. I remember being freaked out because that indeed is not separation of church and state. So church and state are already joined by federal funds, not to mention the tax-free thing. Churches don't pay taxes. Nonetheless, I don't feel that adding love to a loveless system is joining church and state. And that love is not church. Perhaps another love show, but not church. Perhaps they are love organizations, churches, but I don't feel love is church or religion. Love to me is so much bigger than that. More love shows for sure. So, love organizations. It's a nice sentiment to refer to churches as love organizations, but it's a bit anemic, like Dr. King said. But the church has power, yet when it is not inserted with love, the power is kind of sentimental and anemic, like Dr. King said. It seems to me that it must be real, true love. It can't be watered down. And if the church takes that real, true love and injects it into their power, then the church has real power. Like when Mother Teresa used the church to love the unloved. That's power. And it gave the church power too. But since Mother Teresa has passed, the church has lost its power. And a lot of parishioners, less and less people, go to church every year. And now you can't even go to church in most places because of the lockdown. You can still watch the Love Show on Sunday. That's actually one reason I moved the Love Show from Wednesdays to Sundays. I feel love is holy and sacred, and we proved as much just last season here at the Love Show. So I thought one might be able to keep holy the Sabbath by just watching the Love Show. It's kind of like church, but it's not quite. Much less formal. You could be sitting in your PJs and I wouldn't know. But is love justice? Did you know that we have 917 hate groups in the United States? And unless you count churches as love organizations, not one organized love group. If we had less hate groups and more real love groups, we could have more justice. But would we? According to the Old Testament of the Bible, we would. Testament was thought by some to have originally been written in Hebrew. The Hebrew Bible is certainly written in Hebrew. Anyway, the Hebrew word for justice is mishpat. But mishpat means so much more than just justice. It means retributive justice. Like if you steal something, you have to pay for it. But mishpat, according to the folks at the Bible Project here on YouTube, mishpat also means restorative justice. Seeking out the vulnerable people who are being taken advantage of and helping them. It's going the extra mile. Making wrongs right. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9 says, "Bring about just righteousness. Open your mouth for those who cannot speak for themselves." Jeremiah 22, chapter 3 states, "Bring about justice and righteousness. Rescue the disadvantaged, and don't tolerate oppression or violence against the immigrant, the orphan, or the widow." Let me repeat that again. I got a little caught up. Tongue-tied. Bring about justice and righteousness. Rescue the disadvantaged, and don't tolerate oppression or violence against the immigrant, the orphan, or the widow. So apparently, Dr. King, not surprisingly, spoke more on the subject of justice. He also said, quote, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why to do right, that is, he's not talking about the political right, he's talking about like right and wrong. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant." So I found an article in my research for this episode from the Pride Foundation from February 14th, 2017 by Pride Foundation CEO Chris Hermans, entitled "Justice is What Love Looks Like in Public." Excuse me. Chris states that the aforementioned quote of Dr. King's is engraved on the south wall of his memorial in Washington, D.C. And Chris also credits Cornel West, writer, activist, and philosopher, with the quote, "Justice is what love looks like in public." I have to agree with both quotes. So when you inject love into state, do you get justice? Chris goes on to say, ultimately, all of the actions we take in moments like this to lift up our shared humanity will move us along the path toward justice, because they are fundamentally acts of unconditional love. So Chris Hermans thinks love is justice. Dr. King thought love was justice. I think love is justice. Therefore, I would be inclined to think that love is justice. the important thing I think we learned is that there seems to be no justice unless there is love. Justice needs love to exist. Pretty cool. So get out there and love the vulnerable. We can start by eliminating qualified immunity. Where police are not brought to justice because they are qualified for this immunity. No one, in my book, qualifies to be immune to murder charges. They should serve time just like anyone else who committed murder. I don't believe in the death penalty, so I don't think murdering them is the answer. But I do believe that they should get some jail time. And considering they are supposed to uphold the law and murder is against the law, they really should get more time, not less, or any. And they should certainly lose their jobs, not be able to be a police officer anywhere else again. Maybe if the police were properly brought to justice for murder, the families of the victims could feel the peace of justice, the peace of love injected into state to create justice for people, like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Trayvon Martin and Daniel Prude and so many more names that we just should not know. They should still be alive, and they are not. Spirits feel justice? I think they can. They can feel love. So is love justice? Yes. Put a little love in your justice. Let's take a moment now to just say a little prayer for justice with love for Breonna and for George and for Trayvon and for Daniel and for anyone else who deserves justice. Both sides of the line, Justice. Justice with love. I love you. Thanks for watching. Justice with love.